Hi, everybody. It's Debbie from Spooky Things. How are you tonight? It's been kind of crazy over here. I am here like natural, like no makeup, no nothing. It's just me tonight. So it's like been one of those weeks. Okay, tonight, what I'm going to talk about is going to go back to like the hauntings of this area in particular. Um, and this is like in and near around the Mariana, Florida area. Um, I got a lot of people out there who live in this area, and there's a couple of key places. And this is for people that want to, go check things out. This might help you out a bit. Um, Now I know this is a really tricky subject here. There is a place here in Mariana that is highly sought after. Um, they don't really want it to be um, utilized in that fashion anymore. And the place is called the Dozier School. Um, there's a lot of things that are going on, and you know what? In a way, I have to kind of agree with the city of Mariana in this particular case because things that happened at the Dozier School, first of all, happened a long time ago, a very long time ago. And but the families of the young men that attended this particular school, well, they were boys at the time, really. They still live in this area, and a lot of the people that went to Dozier School, a lot of the men that went to Dozier School, still live in this area. And to have investigations and people coming around interested in, the more negative side of what had occurred there. Um, Maybe not so much of a good idea. In respect to the families of the people that still live around here, I mean, I know people are going, oh no, but I got to tell you, I think it's the right call. I really do. Dozier School was not a great place. A lot of not so good things happen there. But what they're doing there now is is a good thing. Um, they've really got the area. Well, the school is still parts of the school are still there. I think some of the significant parts are still there. Yeah, I mean, I drive by it every day, about 10 times a day for my job minimum. And I got to tell you, every time I drive by, I'm sensitive, so it's going to happen to me anyway, but it just never fails. There has not been a time that I've not driven by where I feel something like reaching out, you know, hey, hey. Um, you just kind of get used to it. So, but other people drive by without a notice in the world. So I think that if you're keyed into it and you're familiar, well, you really, if as long as you're keyed into who you are and that you pick things up, whether you know what went on there or not, you're going to pick up on something. But I do every time I drive by. I do. And it's just, I think if I drove by one day and I didn't pick up on it, I think, like, what's wrong? Why are you guys so quiet for? Because I hear from them every time I go by. But to the general public, they're building like a convention center there. They've got schooling going on for disabled adults going on there. They got all kinds of things going on, and they're positive. It's positive things. So um, positivity is hopefully going to relax the negativity of what went on there, and I think it's a good call. Um, Hopefully things will equal out in the long run of it all, and I think it will. I do. I think it will. But in any case, is Dozier School active? Yeah. Yeah. Um, can you go there? No. No, not for that intention. You cannot go there. But and you really don't want to push it because the sheriff's office is like on the grounds. Don't push it. Don't go there. Okay. Um, so I did want to mention the Dozier School because in Marianna, Florida, it's pretty renowned for the Dozier School. But I think that the path that they're taking with it is probably in the long scheme of things, I think it's the right call. I really do. So, in case you guys have any intention of coming out to that particular, don't scratch it. It's not going to happen. Um, Mariana Arrowhead Campground. I haven't really heard a lot about coming anything out of that, but it is actually listed on haunted places to go to or active places. Personally, I don't really get a whole lot from there. Been there many times. Um, that is the campground that got hit by a tornado the beginning of the year, and it was like a F2 tornado, and it really did damage. People got hit. Nobody got killed, but people did get hurt. Took a few people to the hospital. That one, I mean, the RVs were just tossed like toys over there, and it was really terrible. It really was terrible. Um, So, when I say the Arrowhead Campground, it's actually called something different now, like the Caverns or Campground, something like that. Um, but it's not on the, when it called the Caverns Campground. There's actually a campground at the Caverns itself, which is also on this list. So the Mariana Arrowhead Campground itself that I'm talking about is up on Lafayette. It's not over by the actual caverns. Um, And again, like I say, I've really not picked a whole lot up there, but that's me. I mean, maybe somebody else might, but it's beautiful. It's a really nice campground. They got a lot of amenities there, washers, dryers, showers. I mean, really, the campground itself is beautiful. And it's sitting right on the Merritt Mill Pond, and you can canoe, kayak. Um, it is really pretty. It really is old Florida for sure. And at the end, at the opposite end of the lake, there is there's the Blue Springs Park, and there is a beautiful spring-fed swimming area. And I mean, it's gorgeous. It is absolutely gorgeous. So just going there just to stay in the campground for the prettiness of it in itself is a good deal. Um, And talking about that, let's just go ahead and talk about the Florida caverns. We have the only air-filled cabins in Florida that you can actually just walk through and experience. It's beautiful. I've been in there a few times. Now, they really do stress it that they don't want you to touch the walls, and they don't want you to mess up the ground that you're walking in, because it's very very protected. And when you go in, and you can see why. I mean, they've got absolutely, they got the wedding cake room, and it looks like the formations form what appears to be a structure that looks like a wedding cake. They have all these different rooms in there. They call them by these different things, and it's just really cute. But um, definitely, for me being in there, I can tell you, is it? Are there spirits there? Hmm. There are. Take my word. There are. Um, I have never felt in any way in danger or anything like that. It's not that kind. But it's like you can feel those that went on before us in there, and it is just. It is really a cool place to go. And now my understanding of it is that they have been having haunted tours in there. If you would be interested, it goes more into that aspect of it by doing one of these haunted tours. I've not gone on one, but I think it merits it because it really is, and not just it's the spook factor involved in it. It's a cave, and it's a very, very eerie looking cave inside. Beautiful, gorgeous, but eerie in its own right. And it definitely is definitely mentionable on this because I really think that if you're into that kind of a thing, definitely you want to give the caverns a visit. It is really cool. Um, there is a place in town, a church. It's called St. Luke's Episcopal Church. It's not a huge church, but it is really different. Um, I find it to be absolutely fascinating. It bearing it in mind it's a church, so I'm not sure if they would appreciate anybody just wandering around in there, getting anything. That's a church and it should be respected as one. But there were, it was pretty much on the site of the Mariana battle that had gone on there. And, there are still spiritual happenings because of that. It is actually a very cool place. I and again, these are the places that I go by pretty much on a daily basis, and I can tell you that it's a place that you might want to take a look into because I particularly think that it really is pretty cool. I'm just kind of going through my notes that I took here about some of these places. Of course, I'm going to be saying one that you're going to go, oh yeah. Now it's a St. Luke's. The grounds surrounding this church is where the Civil War Battle of Mariana took place. The basement is rumored to be haunted by Confederate soldiers that were killed here. There have been many reports of an elderly bearded man wearing period clothing. So evidently a lot of the activity that goes on there is in the basement. So obviously you would have to get permission to go into the basement. Remember, it's a working church and not so sure that they give you permission to do that. But hey, you want to check, you go to the office and see. They might be accommodating. I don't know. The church itself is really pretty. It's worth going into just for it's pretty. Um, so it I'm just kind of looking through here. Yeah, it's got the graveyard outside too, and it's not a huge graveyard. It's a small one. But again, before you go doing anything, make sure it's okay by the church before you do that. But yeah, that is pretty much on the list here because it is indeed it is active. Okay, so we're working our way up here. Now, the next place that I want to talk to you about is the um, the Russ House. The Russ House is gorgeous, and it is right on 90, and it is a very large period building. Beautiful, absolutely stunningly beautiful, and it's actually used by the Chamber of Commerce today. Um, there are a lot of um, a lot of stories coming out of the Russ House. So we have here is the historic Russ House in Mariana. is one of the most beautiful old homes in Florida. And I can attest to that. It is beautiful. Some also claim that it is one of the most haunted. Um, the historic structure is home of the Jackson County Tourism Office, and the stories of ghosts and strange sounds, however, go back for decades. The Rust House is undoubtedly Mariana's most photographed historic house. Some of these photographs, however, show much more than a beautiful old building. It is probably Mariana's most um, photographed historic house because they have had images that show shadowy figures that appear to be looking out from the tower windows. I know I've driven by several times and it's been like, what was that? Turn around, you go back by, and it's not there anymore. And there's nobody in there. Well, except them. And yeah, so I can say no. I've seen that. I definitely have seen it. Could it be shadows or something like that? Not white, but it had a real light. It wasn't shadows. It wasn't light. It was actually looked like somebody standing there. It was interesting, and then that's happened a few times with me driving by. Um, the Rust House has been investigated by several teams. Investigators from the group report that they reported strange sounds and encountered weird electronic readings in the house. Some wonder if these oddities are caused by the home's long deceased owner, Joseph W. Rust Jr. He built the house in 1892, and it took him until 1895 to complete it. A successful Mariana merchant, he owned large land ownings in Jackson County, and his home was a showplace, and it still is. The house was originally built in a Victorian style, but it was remodeled in 1910 when the rounded two-story porches and beautiful columns were added. This has been a Mariana landmark since the day it was built and overlooks the intersection of Lafayette and Russ Streets. They're not lying. This place is really pretty. The yard of the Russ House is hallowed ground. Although the Russ House itself had not been built at the time, the intersection of Lafayette and Russ was the spot where the heaviest fighting of the Battle of Mariana began on September 27th, 1864. Then called Ely Corner, the intersection was the point where the Union 2nd Maine Cavalry charged into heavy fire laid down by Confederate troops. Several men were killed and wounded on the grounds, and some speculate that the strange manifestations at the house may linger from the Battle of Mariana. Tragedy associated with the site did not end with the battle. With his early years in the house were happy, Mr. Les Ross lost a fortune to the great crash of 1929. Turned down by banks for a loan to save his home, he committed suicide in early 1930. That's sad. The Russ family was able to keep the house and slowly rebuild its prosperity, but former residents described mysterious sounds and unexplained apparitions there. It was renovated and restored in the 1990s and is now publicly owned. The strange happenings in the house, however, continued, and one former resident even cautioned employees against working in the house alone after dark. A number of different groups of paranormal investigators have spent time in the house with mixed results. One group reported an odd perfume smell and concluded that the elevator door opened and closed was caused by a ghost. Yeah, it's an old house. The most thorough research has been done by uh, a group which has returned to the structure several times. So perhaps the most unique evidence of a ghost in the house is the photograph, which shows a mysterious figure in one of the windows of the tower. The figure definitely is not a person, as the tower has no floor. It functions as a skylight for the second floor. So, but like I said, I saw something there. Yeah, no doubt about it. There was definitely something there a few times, but weird because you just, oh, look, and you just keep on going because unfortunately you get used to seeing it. Oh, that's sad in a way, but it is true. Um, Now, I do know that they do tours there and they do investigations at times. And there is a particular group of people there that um, pretty much help out with that. So, but if you're interested in the Russ House, um, go ahead and give them a call in Mariana, and you can Google it, and it'll come right up for you. But it is an absolutely beautiful home. If for no other reason to go and take a look at it, it is an absolutely beautiful home, and it's worth just seeing it. And then the added bonus is in case you could catch anything, and you never know. But it's very popular and it's very beautiful, and it's definitely something that people like to look into, and I I would encourage it. It's really very, very, very pretty. So, but the name of it again is the Russ House. Um, okay, so that's like in the middle of downtown Mariana, and it's where there's another house across the street, and the house across the street still has bullet holes from the battle, and they didn't want to get rid of them because it was so cool, but the bullet holes are still there. But I gotta tell you the truth, if it was my house, I'd keep them there too because that's just pretty cool. So yeah, there is that. So now we're coming along to something that probably a lot of people here do know about is called the Bellamy Bridge. Hmm. I've been out there. It's eerily pretty. Um, there's flip flopping stories about Bellamy Bridge. Um, there was a local author who wrote a lot about her experiences with Mariana. Well, Jackson County, because she actually lived in Jackson County. And she used to write, excuse me, she used to write about it in her books. And a lot of her books would talk about certain places or events. And as people keep reading them, it's like, wow, that sounds awful familiar. And with her living in the area, the chances are she did um, write about places that she found very lovely in Jackson County. And it could have been brought on by a story that she had written, and it kind of gotten taken from there, I guess you could say. And I'm trying to, here we go. Okay, now this is the story of Bellamy Bridge. um it's in a pretty rural area. I think it's considered like the second oldest steel frame bridge in Florida. It was built a long time ago, and the bridge itself is still there. Now it doesn't have the wood components into it, so you cannot walk across the bridge. It's the steel frame of the bridge that's still there, and it's interesting. It's went through Michael with no problem, Hurricane Michael with no problem. This thing is strong, But, time takes a toll on everything. The story of the ghost of Bellamy Bridge is probably Florida's most famous ghost story. It's centered around an old steel frame bridge that spans the Chipola River in the swamps north of Mariana. The legend holds that the restless spirit of a young woman named Elizabeth Jane Bellamy roams the swamps around the bridge on the dark and foggy nights. The wife of one of Florida's key antebellum economic and political leaders, she is buried in an overgrown family cemetery not far from the skeletal remains of the old bridge. Bellamy Bridge is not accessible by car but can be reached via the 1/2 mile Bellamy Bridge Heritage Trail on the Highway 162 north of Mariana. The trail is open only during daylight hours. You're not permitted to really go out there after daylight. That that's like a new thing that they have going on. It's just, they don't really want to take the liability of people going out there at night because it's a pretty rural area. So I was like, I don't want to do that. The story of the ghost of Bellamy Bridge is really a tale of two stories. The first is the story of a ghost, a legend that has evolved over more than 100 years of time. The other is the true story about Elizabeth Jane Bellamy, which is far removed from the legendary tale. When the two stories are combined, they create a unique lesson in how real history can join with fiction and create popular folklore. So we'll go ahead and we'll look at the legend of it right now, about what they say about it. And that's that Elizabeth was a beautiful young bride of a prominent Jackson County planter, politician, and bank examiner named Dr. Samuel C. Bellamy. The two were deeply in love and planned for their wedding to take place in the backyard of a beautiful mansion that Dr. Bellamy supposedly built for his wife to be in nearby Mariana. The wedding is said to have been a remarkable affair, attracting guests and gifts from as far away as Europe. The two were wed in a garden of roses, and their vows each promised to love the other forever. In the hours following the wedding, however, storytellers hold that a horrible tragedy struck the young couple. Elizabeth, they say, was either dancing with her new husband or resting upstairs on a comfortable chair. The stories vary at this point. Um, when her long gown suddenly came in contact with either a candle or an open fireplace. The rich material burst into flames, and before her husband or any of their guests could react, Elizabeth ran screaming from the house. Overcome by the flames, she was horribly injured. The young woman survived for a few days, writhing in incredible agony before finding peace in the arms of death. Her brother was taken to her. I'm sorry. Her body was taken to the plantation of Samuel's brother, Dr. Edward C. Bellamy, and laid to rest in a grove of trees near the Chipola River. The legend holds, however, that the grave was unable to contain her love for her lost husband. A spectral form dressed in white began to appear at night along the banks of the river. In later years, when Bellamy Bridge was built by the site, her ghost was often seen in the swamps surrounding it. It's quite a fascinating tale, but it's been a question for years, and the answer is just as colorful and tragic as the ghost story itself. Now, let's go ahead and we'll talk about the real history of these people. Yes, they were real people. It was Samuel and Elizabeth Bellamy, and he was the son of a wealthy planter, and she was the daughter of General William Croom. They grew up near each other in North Carolina, but she was still a young girl when he left home to study medicine at the University of Pennsylvania. Their courtship apparently began at about the time that Samuel's older brother, Edward, married Elizabeth's older sister. and her name was Anne. Even though Samuel was 9 years her elder, the two families approved of the match, and records verify that the two were married on July 15th in 1834 in North Carolina, and 3 years before the suspected or before the supposed Florida wedding and fire. So that whole part of it is not true, as history goes. Both the Croom and Bellamy families took great interest in the vast lands available for settlement in the new territory of Florida. Elizabeth's brother, Dr. Hardy Bryan Croom, was already living in Florida and was not long before the two Bellamy brothers and their wives decided to relocate to the territory as well. Edward and Anne purchased the Fort Plantation where Bellamy Bridge stands today, while Samuel and Elizabeth acquired land they called the Rock Cave Plantation along Baker Creek, which was a few miles northwest of Marianna. They lived there with their young son, Alexander, and more than 80 African slaves that they had brought with them from North Carolina. So this is a lot of people that moved onto that property. The lands along the Chipola River and Baker Creek were ideal for growing cotton and sugarcane, and the plantations prospered. The swamps, however, were also a breeding ground for mosquitoes, and sickness such as malaria and yellow fever plagued the early settlers of the area, and it was from fever, not fire, that Elizabeth met her death. So she never caught on fire. Okay. Um, Samuel's letters and an obituary in the Tallahassee Floridian indicate that she died from fever on May the 11th in 1837. She was only 18 years old at that time. 18 years old. So they were only married for what, 3 years? I mean, they were just really newlyweds. It's likely that Elizabeth was being cared for by her sister Anne when she died. She was laid to rest in a grove of trees near the site where Bellamy Bridge stands today. 1 week later, her young son Alexander also died from the fever and was buried by her side. Oh, that's so sad. Samuel Bellamy never remarried, and the old legend is correct in its assertion that he mourned for his wife the rest of his life. He went on to serve as a delegate to the Florida's Constitutional Convention, as clerk of courts for Jackson County, and as secretary for the Florida Supreme Court. He took his own life in 1853 by cutting his throat with a razor at Chattahoochee, Florida. And this was right alongside the Apalachicola River where that actually happened. The massive mansion that legend holds he built for his young bride did not stand during her lifetime, but was started 9 months after her death. It was demolished during the 20th century and survives today only in faded photographs. That's sad too. So it's kind of tragic all the way around, you know? So, how did a ghost story about a woman burning to death on her wedding night evolve from the true story of a young wife who died from fever when she was 18 years old? The answer to that question is as fascinating as the legend itself. During the final days of her life, the famed 19th century novelist Caroline Lee Hentz lived in Marianna. As times passed, people began to associate the places described in her novels with real places in Jackson County. Her, quote, Long Moss Spring, unquote, for example, is now commonly associated with Blue Springs. The remember when we were talking about the Arrowhead Campground is on the Mill Pond Lake? Well, that's Blue Springs Park is at the other end of that lake. And that's the area that they're talking about. Even though she wrote about her spring well before she moved to Mariana. In her book, Ernest Linwood, or The Long Moss Spring, hence described a tragic wedding night incident in which a young slave woman was severely burned after her dress came into contact with an open flame. She died from her injuries, and her ghost soon to appear in the area of her grave. The home in which the tragedy took place was called the Bellamy Plantation in the book. So, Ernest Linwood, the author noticed in the preface, was based on real events. Can you see me now? I can't hear. Mm-mm, mm-mm. I'm hearing. Yeah, I'm hearing you. Yes. What? Oh, hi. Oh my. Okay. Sorry about that. My internet is like, I don't know what's going on with my internet. Anyway, um, okay. So anyway, we were talking about the Bellamy Bridge. So basically, what it is, guys, the Bellamy Bridge has got a rich history, but not all of it is based on fact. Um, I guess you just kind of have to give and take of it what you will. Is there something out there? Yeah, there is. But I mean, it's outside. It's in a rural site, and that's not uncommon. It's really not uncommon. And again, yeah, yeah. If you can put up a picture for me, that would be great. That was my producer. Okay, so there's Bellamy Bridge, and like I said, it's just basically the structure itself. Um, Over to the right of it, I think is the actual bottom of it. I think the picture is sideways. So if you look into the right side of it, that's the floor part, and it's tall. But that's what really exists now of the Bellamy Bridge. It's absolutely fascinating, and just looking at it in the architectural sense of this particular bridge, how old that it has withstood, I don't even know how many hurricanes, including Michael in 2000, what, 18? You know, it's impressive. It really is impressive. So the best thing I could say for the Bellamy Bridge, go out there yourself. Well, get permission first, because it is land that you have to have permission to go out on. And at the present time, my understanding is that they're not allowing people out there at night because it is so very rural, and I don't really think they want the liability of people tromping through there at night. It is on the river. Let's face facts. We're in Florida. We have gators. We have crocodile. We have nasty slithering snakes everywhere. You don't want to be stepping on any of those. So, I would not be more I would be more afraid of what's real and in front of me than what could be attached to that bridge. I think that's the least of your trouble. It's the bridge itself, but what you got to go through to get to the bridge. Go in the daytime, and I think that you'll have a very good idea of what the Bellamy Bridge is about. So there we have. So now we've got the caverns, the Russ House, Bellamy Bridge, St. Luke's Church. Um, Now we're going to talk about something that's very near and dear to my heart. And this is a little bit further up the road, it's about 50 miles away. Um, it takes me about 70, or I'm sorry, about 45 minutes to get there. It doesn't take me long at all. And that's in Walton County, Defuniak. Um, I have been doing investigations at the Defuniak for years. And um, a friend of mine who I worked with for many years had been doing it even longer. And what a rich history in this particular hotel. It's called the Defuniak Hotel. And it's not only the hotel that has had some things that have happened to it. The Walton County Emergency Operational Center there, that's also had a lot of issues with it as far as activity. Of all places, the 911 center in Walton County. But they said they got a lot of activity going on there. Now it's a working operational center, so, and it's 911. So definitely would not suggest you going there because they 911, they work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all year long. That never shuts down. So, I mean, obviously that's going to be a full-time operational center and you just can't have people tromping through there. But they do have a lot of situations that go on there. Um, the Defuniak Hotel. It was built in the 1900, 1910, and was it 1910, 1920, and what when was that? In any case, 1922, I think, is when it was built. 1922, 23. The bottom line is, it just had its 100-year anniversary of being built, is 100 years old. So I think it was 122, 123 that it was built in. Um, it was originally a Masonic. It was built by the Masons, and what's really cool is that you can still see the Masonic symbol all over that building, all over the building. It's an absolutely stunning building. They did an amazing job building it. They really did, and it's as mysterious as it is beautiful. It has 12 rooms, one room downstairs, and then the 11 rooms upstairs. And it is full of activity. Now, there have been times that I have gone in there and it was absolutely quiet. We didn't hear anything from anybody that was in there. And we know quite a bit about what went on in the place through research and um, historical accounts of what people have experienced in there. Is the Defuniak Hotel haunted? Yes, without a doubt, it is haunted. And everybody wants to stay in room 8 because that's where the little girls, legend has it, that's where they were killed in. Well, historically, that's where they were killed in. And so everybody wants to stay in room 8. Well, let me tell you, you don't have to stay in room 8 to experience the hotel. You will experience the hotel wherever you are in there. They don't just hang out in room 8. They are free to roam. They go anywhere they want to. So you can get experiences from everywhere, from in the hotel itself to over to the Cafe Nola, which is right next door, connected to the hotel itself. You can, from the inside, you could go right into one from the other. And I know that several teams have gone in there, and they really had great results with the Hotel de Funiac. When we first went in there, it hadn't really been visited that much, and we noticed what a gem it was. I mean, an actual just this place is off the chain. I mean, really off the chain. And we started making reports out on it of what we had seen, what we had experienced, and a lot of people started coming to it after that. And I did notice that there is a lot of change with the hotel since a lot of other teams have gone in there. And I can also tell when certain people go in there and put their essence down in it, trying to conduct ceremonies or whatever. They don't like it. They don't like it at all. And I don't blame them. Um, it's kind of like in the spiritual world, that's kind of like pushing your religion off on somebody. You don't like it when they do that to you. They don't like it either. And, having to be subjected to that, and there's nothing that you can really do about it. They don't like it. And kind of hard to tell people, you know, don't try to do any kind of ritualistic stuff in here because it's not going to go well. There are other things in there like the portal. We found portals. We found two portals in there actually. And there's just a cornucopia of stuff that goes on in there. It's an entire collection of stuff that goes on in there. And the Defuniac Hotel is not in our past from what we're going to be doing. It's very much going to be a part of our future. We, in talking with the manager of both the hotel and the restaurant, his name is Ernie. He's an amazing chef. He's a Cajun chef, and there are some things that are going to be coming up that we are going to be doing that does involve the Defuniac Hotel with the Web Paranormal team, and which here, hey, how are you? I'm not sure who this is that's saying hello, but hello, how are you? And but Ernie has put a suggestion down for us on the table, and we've eagerly accepted it. So there are going to be a lot more going on at the hotel for us, with us, and in other places that still have a connection with the hotel. So can't really go into it. We'll let you know as time goes on what we're exactly going to be doing with it. But it it's going to prove to be really interesting. And those that have followed us and know what all we picked up, I mean, we picked up everything from the first day that I was in there, very, very, very first day that I was in there. I was taking a walkthrough with Ernie through the hotel. And the first thing I heard was one of the little girls go, "Hi." And I was shocked. I was like, "Did you just hear that?" And Ernie was like, "Oh, yeah, I hear that all the time." He, he was like, "Oh, yeah," completely unfazed by it. I was like, oh my God, that was just so audible. He was like, "Yeah, they do it all the time." Well, now the little girls know me by name, and they call out as soon as I come there, "Hi, Debbie, how are you?" And they even joke around a little bit. They're just so cute. They're really just so cute. And we really have a lot of fun there. And but in any case, we do have some really cool things coming up with the Defuniac Hotel and with Ernie, and we're real excited about that. So there's other places in the Defuniac that we have gone to, and one of them was a private office very close to the hotel, and that as well was just full of activity. And it's just like it's a normal thing. Defuniak has got a lot of historical places there, and it is one of the most active cities I've been in. I know that St. Augustine and Pensacola both have a rich history of activity, but I'm telling you, Defuniak is really up there. I think it's one of those untold beauties around that people don't know about too much of, but Defuniak really is a wonderful, wonderful place. But again, make sure that you get permission. Many of these are privately owned homes and privately owned properties, and you just don't want. It's like you sitting there and having some strangers just walk into your house. You don't do that. Well, you do that, but you usually end up in the hoosegow for it. So I wouldn't advise doing it. But those are basically the places around the area that we have going on up here. There are other places that are just off from these areas here. Panama City, I know of quite a few of them. Tallahassee, got a lot going on there. But these are all places that we're going to be looking into. We have future projects coming up that is going to be totally different than what we're actually doing right here. And going to be bringing some of that to Little Mariana. And I think that's going to be really, it's going to be really nice. So we have a lot of things going on right now. And you guys just kind of keep up with us here. But I hope this has been helpful. So I've given you some really good information on all these particular places in this particular area. And I'll go ahead and I'll do some research on some of the other areas. The Funiac Hotel and Cafe Nola, of course, like I said, that's like 50 miles away in Walton County. And that's not Jackson. That's the only one that we've talked about tonight that is not in Jackson County. All the others are all in Jackson County. So, um, if you guys want me to check into any places, just let me know, and I'll go ahead and check into that for you. We have a lot of events that are coming up, and um, it brings us around to a lot of different events and a lot of different things that we do. So, saying that, we're going to be going ahead and taking off for the night. Sorry that the internet has been acting up. It's like really aggravating to me as well. Um, and we'll go ahead and we'll try to. I know my producer's been going nuts back there trying to keep everything going. Thank you, Stan. I'm so sorry. But everybody, thank you for joining in. And I appreciate y'all taking the time. And so we'll see you again next Tuesday. And I'll have some more information for you coming out. And if there's anything that you want me to go into, let me know. Um, Anything from cryptid to paranormal to, well, UFOs or whatever. Just let me know. And we're going to be signing off for the night. And I want to say thank you very much for everybody. And we'll see you next Tuesday at 7 o'clock on Spooky Things. Thank you guys. We'll talk to you later. Bye bye.